Subscriptions, from Netflix to Hulu to Amazon to Apple Music to Spotify, whatever you are subscribing to, it seems that tech companies seem to be loving these subscription business models. So for today, let's chat about how all of these companies are trying to find ways of making you pay every month, every week, every year for the rest of your life. Hey, what up? It's your boy MobbJustice back again with another video. And recently, Paramount Studios released its own streaming service called Paramount Plus. Now, this is in addition to Disney Plus, Apple TV Plus, Hulu, Netflix, Showmax, whatever you are viewing your content on. And it made me think about this subscription business model that seems to be quite pervasive in today's technology landscape. And the key question for today that I'm going to be asking is, how much is ownership important to you? As always, this video is brought to you by the team over at Lion Media. Head on over to check out some of the crispiest photo, video, and audio content. That's www.lionmedia.com. Head on over, check it out, and just see what the team can do for you. As we go down this road, it would only be fair for us to state up front that subscription models are nothing new in life. If you look at some of the economic structures that we have in place, take rent, for example, rent for accommodation, where people live, where people stay. That is a form of subscription. You are paying a monthly, sometimes annual amount for you to stay in that certain place. That is a form of subscription. And in essence, our education system is also built along the same way. For the right of your child or for yourself to access education facilities at a particular institution, you pay an amount called school fees, which is in essence a subscription for a certain amount of time during which time you complete your studies. So in essence, subscription models are nothing new. But technology firms seem to really be coming and making inroads on this at the moment, coming from a different model that was used in the past. One of the big drivers for the shift to subscription models is the move to digital, where, for example, you used to get physical CDs or physical copies of a Microsoft CD, for example. You are now getting all of that being able to be downloaded online. So that has given people the ability to replicate copies without going into physical stores, firstly. Secondly, there is a lot of free stuff out there in the online world. So manufacturers, software developers, tech companies, music companies have to find ways to make the cost or access to their particular goods and services lower for consumers. But ultimately, subscription models are seen as probably an ultimate form of passive income. You spend money getting the person once, advertising, marketing, all of that, and then depending on how good or bad your service is, you likely have that person for a good amount of time, if not for the rest of their life. Now, just looking at the advantages of subscription models, there are four main things that come to the fore. Firstly, the economics just work. You create one copy of something, you develop a new piece of software, or you create a piece of content, video or music, and that piece of content is able to be replicated multiple times across the internet, right? That's the first thing. So your cost of production greatly comes down compared to physical goods, especially in an online environment. The second issue, and probably the most important factor to consider, is that companies are trying to create recurring streams of revenue, money that's going to come in constantly. Because if you subscribe to Spotify, for example, and you're paying that amount, or Apple Music, whatever it is, you are paying every month. Even though it's a small amount of money, it is a small amount of money over a long period of time. And if you have, let's say in the case of Netflix, you have 200 million people people around the world that are paying for your service, then you know that there is a minimum amount of money that you're getting every single month. And that sort of works and allows you to plan your lives, as opposed to if you were selling physical things where sales might go up and down and all of that. Here you're enticing customers with a small amount, and it's constant, for a long time to come. And coupled with keeping customers for a long time to come is the fact of customer acquisition. I already mentioned it just now, but basically the cost of getting a customer to acquire your good or service vastly comes down, because, for example, an album back in the day used to cost between 10 and 15 US dollars, right? But now for a minimum fee of, let's say, $5 to $7, you can get access to a wide library of music from around the world, as opposed to if you had to physically go out and buy all of those CDs and CDs, singles and records on your own, right? So on that side, it entices the customer, but as a company, it helps you to reduce the amount of costs that are involved in getting your product into people's hands. But more importantly, for the consumer, it means that in the case of streaming services, for example, or software companies like Adobe and Microsoft, they have access to the latest and greatest, because it's sort of built in. When a new version comes out, they automatically get it. In the case of content, when a new movie comes out, it's there in the library, you can access it, as opposed to having to go out and buy the new version. When it comes to subscriptions and the role of technology, I want to hone in on two particular industries or ways in which technology is helping to drive the subscription business model. Firstly, on the content side, we've already used that example of Hulu, Netflix, Spotify, Apple Music, and the like. But the way to look at the development is to say, back in the day, people had to buy, let's say, physical CDs for music, right? There was a big onus on the consumer to have ownership. Ownership was what was encouraged. You have your record collection, you have your vinyls, you have your CDs, you have your tapes, whatever it is. You go out, you buy the work from the artist, and then you keep it at your house. And then we moved into the digital realm. Firstly, with Napster and all the peer-to-peer file sharing, it really ushered in a stage where people found that you could get vast libraries of content online. And that then, saw the evolution, at least on the legal side, of iTunes when Apple released the iPod back in 2003. And with it came a different type of ownership where you have digital ownership, right? The cost of your CD now becomes the cost of the download. But then after some time, it seemed that people, that wasn't an attractive one. And with, the subscription models such as Netflix and Spotify in the late to early 2010s, you started seeing people saying, okay, fine, we're moving away from physical CDs over to iTunes, and now you have things like Apple Music, where you pay a small amount of money and you have access to Apple's vast library for the rest of the month. In the world of video, one would see that the dynamics are slightly different, because for a while Netflix sort of was the one go-to place where you could get content from, studios, production houses, and TV stations from around the world, from CBS, ABC, Warner Brothers, all the way to Nigerian and Indian content, right? But now you have a lot of companies, studios coming in, and they want to own that whole channel of distribution. And you see a lot of them, we've spoken about this on this platform a couple of times, seeing people taking off their content from Netflix and developing their own platforms. Disney Plus, Apple TV Plus, and now we've got Paramount Plus. So what's ended up happening is that you have this fragmentation that's happening, and one wonders how far that is going to go. The second bit to consider and to understand is what's now termed as software as a service. I will point to the example of Adobe and Microsoft to illustrate. Back in the day, if you were a creator such as myself, you knew that there was access to the Adobe Creative, the Creative Suite, and you knew that if you paid, I think back in the day it was like $500 or something, you could get all the Adobe software, right? And you get it on a set of discs or a disc, and you load them up on your computer and you have that access. But in recent years, Adobe has moved over to Creative Cloud, where you sort of pay a monthly subscription to have access to the same programs. For people like myself, I do not like this at all, because it sort of means you've become a slave. Yes, the upfront cost back in the day of acquiring a license to the Adobe Creative Suite was heavy, but you sort of knew that it was, that's that. Let's say, for example, a piece of software costs $1,000, right? You pay $1,000 and your pocket is heavy, you're sweating, and it's not good. But you know that your $1,000 has been paid and it's done. But if you're now being made to pay, let's say $40 to $50 every month, then it means that very quickly, within a space of maybe 2.5 years, 2 years, you've already surpassed the 1,000, and over the lifetime of you using whatever that suite of software is, you're gonna pay way more money to the likes of Adobe than you would have had you just gone out and bought a license. And the same is true about what Microsoft is doing with its Office suite as well, right? Yes, they do still offer some ownership. You can pay an amount and get use for your computer. You've got that ownership, you download the file. Unfortunately, you can see that these companies really are trying to push the subscription model, especially in the case of Microsoft, because it really limits the functionality that you get when you just outright pay for that service, as opposed to subscribing to Microsoft 365. But as much as I'm talking about subscription models and their pervasiveness, in some cases they just don't work. We spoke at the beginning about rent and education, and that these models have been there for a long time, but the economics don't always work. Let's take the example of MoviePass, which was a subscription movie service back in the day. Now note, this is not online streaming in the case of Netflix. Rather, this was a subscription service where people could go literally to physical cinemas and watch movies. You're given a certain amount of movies. I think in the beginning you could watch as many movies as you want, but the economics just didn't work because concessions, popcorn, normal movie ticket prices, all of that, it just didn't work. So subscription models, yes, they are very attractive in terms of creating those recurring streams of revenue, but they aren't always the best thing that can be done. In conclusion, these subscriptions don't look like they're going away anytime soon, and it's likely that we're going to see even more subscription services coming online in the next decade or so. If you look at the way that certain businesses are moving, especially tech-powered businesses, you can see how people are trying by all means to move their customer bases to that. An example is Uber. There's something called Uber Pass that's there right now, and basically that allows people for a subscription fee to get discounts on certain rides, Uber Eats, and all of that. And one would realistically see that depending on how that program performs, that Uber could come up with, let's say, a ride subscription service, right, where for a certain amount you can get maybe, 20 or 50 rides in a month or something like that. And but it just depends on where they're going. But you can already see they're trying to get their users to come in on a subscription basis, because at the moment you pay Uber for each ride. They're just trying to make you come in so that you become that recurring stream of revenue. What I am praying for is two things. Firstly, can we please not have any more online streaming services? Netflix was a really good value for money offering back in the day, but now with all of these services, one is going to end up paying a lot of money, paying for Disney, paying for Apple, paying for Hulu, Showmax, all of these services. And I really like what Apple had tried to do with Apple TV Plus, having one place where you can have all your content and maybe over time pay one subscription amount. And if you think about it, what's happening? The solution is likely going to be a cable-like service where someone goes and says, okay, here's all your content and you can pay one fee and it gives you access to Netflix and all of this. But until we get there, it's just so tough. The second thing is better ownership structures when it comes to software services. I mentioned Adobe at the beginning, just around, their use and ownership. Surely there must be a way that for a person who doesn't want to subscribe to the Creative Cloud, that they should get maybe a license to a particular version of the Creative Suite. Even if it is a large amount of money, it just seems like a better value. Yes, you pay a lot upfront, but you know that you're done, as opposed to knowing that you're probably going to pay thousands of money over to these companies by the end of your lifetime. So that's been it for this video, just around what's going on in the subscriptions market. Very interesting to see how all of these things have been developing and where they're likely going to go. If you are an entrepreneur, if you are trying to start a startup, if you have the next big thing, if you can find a way to create a subscription model from it, do it. And especially if it's the type of thing where you can realistically see people being with you for an extended period of time, go ahead and do it. The economics make sense. I might not particularly be the biggest fan of subscription models, but I can definitely see where they do make sense. So let us know what you think. How many subscription services are you subscribed for when it comes to video, when it comes to music, when it comes to software? How many apps are you paying for? Do you have a gym membership? Do you have a rent? Are you paying rent? All of these things. Let us know in the comments. Let us engage, and I'll catch you guys in the next video.
Hey, this is Baby G, and you're watching the Mob Justice channel. Follow us on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook. Live it, love it, like it. This is the Mob Justice TV.